I remember pulling in the driveway and seeing two cars there.
What do you want to say to the family and friends of the victim of Wenda here?
Yeah.
What's your message to them?
She knew exactly what I came for.
Has executed a condemned man who killed an Akron woman back in 1997.
Why'd you sell drugs?
Money is really good. You know, you're your own boss, and I like working for myself.
She said, "Earl, I'll get you a lawnmower."
Me taking someone's life wasn't worth this object.
You know, whether people want to believe I'm innocent or not, you know.
Number 3, Earl Forrest. Earl Forrest was convicted of the slaying of Harriet Smith, Michael Wells, and Deputy Sheriff Christopher Parsons. The triple slaying occurred in Dent County, Missouri on February 27, 2002. Earl had a history of criminal activity, including convictions for burglary, stealing, and drug possession. According to court documents, Earl had been involved in a dispute with Harriet Smith, his ex-girlfriend, and Michael Wells, her new boyfriend. Earl had previously threatened the couple, and on the night of the slaying, he showed up at Smith's house with a gun. On that night in December 2002, Forrest, who had been drinking, went to Harriet Smith's home and demanded that she fulfill her part of the bargain to buy a lawnmower and a mobile home for Forrest, in exchange for Forrest introducing her to a source of methamphetamine. During the ensuing melee, Forrest shot a guest of Smith's, Michael Wells, in the face, slaying him. Forrest also shot Smith 6 times, slaying her. He took $25,000 worth of meth from Smith's home and returned to his own home, where he had a shootout with law enforcement officers. He fatally shot Deputy Joanne Barnes. He also shot his girlfriend Angela Gamblin and Sheriff Bob Wofford, both of whom survived. When Deputy Sheriff Parsons arrived at the scene, he was also shot and slain by Earl. After a manhunt, Earl was captured and charged with 3 counts of slaying. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced fatally. The trial revealed that Earl had a long history of criminal behavior and was a known drug dealer. His defense team argued that he had a traumatic childhood, with an offensive father and an absent mother, and that he had struggled with addiction and mental health issues. However, the prosecution argued that his actions were premeditated and that he posed a danger to society.
I remember pulling in the driveway and seeing 2 cars there.
Why'd you sell drugs?
Money is really good.
She knew exactly what I came for.
You know, you're your own boss, and I like working for myself.
She said, "Earl, I'll get you a lawnmower."
Me taking someone's life wasn't worth this object.
I thought she rolled her eyes like,
Come out here after the 4th trip to prison in California.
"Oh yeah, okay, whatever, you know."
Start to lose it when I got drunk, and that time I did.
How did the trouble with you and Toddy start?
Well, one was hers, and
How'd you come to be in Missouri?
He had 4,000 a pound.
the other one was a friend of ours named Mike.
Yeah, but then we told her that I was serious, and you know.
What were you serious about?
All I wanted was a lawnmower.
So she come back. She made, you make a lot of money about getting my shit.
And I think that pissed me off.
Like I said, I stayed mad for 1.5 years and was only, I need some more and more,
What message were you trying to send?
Earl's case went through several appeals, but his conviction and sentence were ultimately upheld. He was punished by lethal injection on May 11, 2016 at the Eastern Reception, Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Bonne Terre, Missouri. He spent over a decade on the row in Missouri before his punishment. Forrest was the 90th person fatally punished in Missouri since the reinstatement of the capital punishment in 1989. Number 2, Brett Hartman. In November of 2012, Ohio fatally punished a condemned assassin, Brett Hartman, who went to his demise still claiming he was innocent of knifing a woman 138 times, slitting her throat and cutting off her hand. "I'm good, let's roll," Hartman said, with his last words. He then smiled in the direction of his sister and repeatedly gave her, a friend, and his attorney a thumbs up with his left hand. Hartman was given a single dose of pentobarbital, and the warden declared his time of demise as 10:34 a.m. Hartman was the 49th inmate put down since Ohio resumed these kinds of punishments in 1999. Hartman acknowledged that he had relations with Wanda Snipes early on the morning of September 9, 1997, at her Akron apartment. He also says he went back to Snipes' apartment later that day, found her mutilated body, and panicked, trying to clean up the mess before calling 911. But Hartman said he didn't slay her, a claim rejected by numerous courts over the years. Hartman's attorneys long said that crucial evidence from the crime scene and Snipes' body had never been tested, raising questions about Hartman's innocence.
But ask why. Why are they hiding? Why are they lying so? When it comes to hands, they searched everywhere. Up until my trial, no one in the world deserves to lose a relative or anyone. And every single time it's come back proving the person's innocence.
He is the 49th inmate put to death since Ohio resumed executions 13 years ago.
The way that Windows, was taken, the hair, fingerprints, and I've never been to prison before, so I'd have no idea.
Slitting her throat and cutting off her hands.
And yet they take only the watch, and that mysteriously ends up being the one thing that was Windows. Why are they refusing to test DNA?
But has always denied he killed her.
Especially family is a very traumatizing experience.
Hartman admitted he had sex with Snipes the day she died.
Critical pieces of evidence. But, I didn't do it. You know why? Their excuse for why they didn't lift those prints?
The evidence included fingerprints allegedly found on a clock and a mop handle. Hartman also argued that evidence could implicate an alternate suspect. The state opposed those arguments, citing the strength of the evidence and the fact that courts have repeatedly upheld Hartman's conviction and fatal sentence. The state also said Hartman refused to take responsibility and show remorse. Number 1. Carl Wayne Bunchen. Texas' oldest Enro inmate was punished in April of 2022 for slaying a Houston police officer during a traffic stop more than years ago. Carl Bunchen was born on March 30, 1944. When he was a child, his father slew a man in front of one of his sons and was violent towards his whole family. In one incident, he smashed his wife's teeth. Bunchen sustained broken bones from the harm, and he said he had post-traumatic stress disorder because of it. One of his brothers served a 20-year sentence for an unrelated crime. Bunchen had a lengthy criminal history prior to the slaying, starting with a theft conviction in 1961. Over the years, he gathered convictions for burglary, damage to property, and possession of narcotic drugs. At the time of the shooting, Bunchen had been on parole after serving 13 months of a 15-year sentence for physically exploiting a child. On April 10, 1971, his twin brother, Kenneth Bunchen, was slain by 2 police officers during a shootout. At the time, Bunchen had supposedly vowed to avenge his brother's demise. In addition, he had allegedly told a companion that he would rather shoot it out with police than be sent back to prison. On June 27, 1990, Bunchen was the passenger in a vehicle that was pulled over by 37-year-old Houston Police Department officer James Irby. Irby began speaking with the driver, and Bunchen exited the vehicle and shot Irby once in the head. Irby fell to the ground, and Bunchen shot Irby twice in the back. Bunchen fled the scene, shooting at others who were nearby. After slaying Irby, Bunchen also attempted to shoot at a driver during a carjacking attempt, fired at another officer, and held another person at gunpoint before he was arrested. Bunchen was apprehended in a nearby building. In 1991, a jury found Bunchen guilty of capital slaying, and he was sentenced to his demise on January 24, 1991. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals vacated Bunchen's sentence in 2009. Bunchen went to trial again in 2012. At the trial, his brother testified about their childhood. On March 6, 2012, Bunchen was again sentenced fatally by a jury. On March 30, 2022, Bunchen's lawyers asked the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles to commute Bunchen's sentence to a lesser sentence or to give him a 90-day reprieve. They argued that Bunchen's sentence should be commuted because it was imposed by a jury that wrongly predicted he would pose a future danger to fellow inmates. They also stated that Bunchen's physical impairments, including sciatic nerve pain that sometimes required him to use a wheelchair, would prevent him from harming anyone should he be released. Additionally, the lawyers asked for a 90-day reprieve to determine if Bunchen would have access to his spiritual advisor during the punishment based on the previous Supreme Court decision in Ramirez v. Collier. On April 19, 2022, the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles rejected Bunchen's request for commutation or clemency, voting unanimously against Bunchen. 1 week prior to Bunchen's scheduled punishment, he contracted pneumonia, which makes lethal injection more painful. On his return from the hospital, where he received treatment for pneumonia, Bunchen received a head injury when the vehicle he was being transported in came to a sudden stop. In an interview shortly before his punishment, Bunchen expressed remorse, saying, "Every day for the last 32 years I have regretted what happened." As is customary, he was given a $20 budget for a special meal the night before being punished. The elderly triple slayer chose a double bacon cheeseburger, a deep dish apple pie, and vanilla bean ice cream.
How often do you think about that day?
I think about it every day.
I can only say that it was an amazing feeling.
A lethal dose of pentobarbital was administered
Every day for the last 32 years, I have regretted what happened. When you're sorry that something happened, is that the right word? Remorse? I think the answer is yes.
Thank God after 32 years.
And stood over my husband's lifeless body and shot him twice more in the back.
I wished it hadn't have happened.
Some sense of closure and moving forward.
He thanked his friends. He addressed the Irby family.
Because he was fixing to kill me.
I was with him up to about 15, 20 minutes before his death.
Deepest breath I've been able to in the last 32 years.
Carl Bunchen was executed tonight for the 1990 murder.
Is that called remorse?
Why did you shoot Officer Irby?
The only thing Jim ever said to the guy was he told him to get back in the car.
Of Houston police officer James Irby.
When I pulled my gun, it was in self-defense.
And he expressed remorse for those actions. Bunchen did make a last statement acknowledging that he was the killer of their father and of her husband.
In his last moments, when he was being strapped to the gurney, he said, "I wanted the Irby family to know one thing. I do have remorse for what I did. I pray to God that they get the closure for my slaying their father and Mrs. Irby's husband. I hope to see you in heaven someday, and when you show up, I will give you a big hug." Bunchen, joined by his spiritual advisor, began praying Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd," as the lethal dose of the powerful sedative pentobarbital began. He took a deep breath, coughed once, then took 3 less pronounced breaths before all movement stopped. He was pronounced deceased at 6:39 p.m., 13 minutes later. Several dozen motorcyclists, including motorcycle officers from the Houston Police Department and retired officers from motorcycle clubs, gathered outside the Huntsville unit and revved their engines at the time of the punishment. Those attending the punishment stated they could hear the noise, with some calling it disrespectful and disgusting. That's all for today, folks. Thank you so much for watching our video today, and we will see you the next time.